Welcome to Mountaineer Rants. I'm Terry. This is Paul. It's here. It's game time. We are previewing the West Virginia Penn State game this Saturday night on NBC, 7:30 p.m.
And Penn State is really excited.
They are. Well, it's the first time that NBC has ever televised a game in Beaver Stadium, which I thought that was interesting because NBC used to televise a lot of games, but they've never been to Penn State before. It's the first time we've played them since 1992. Think about that, 31 years ago. So some of you folks that are watching this may not have ever seen us play Penn State. Well, old timers like us have seen it and lived through it when it was every year. Yes.
And it's supposed to be a slaughter. Penn State thinks it's going to be a slaughter. The prognosticators think it's going to be a slaughter. The TV people think it's going to be a slaughter. They think they're going to beat us by 3 scores. And who can blame them? But here's what they would base it on. What are the expectations? Well, West Virginia was 5-7 last season. Penn State was 11-2. West Virginia has a new quarterback starting. It's a 3-star. Penn State probably has a 5-star starting. West Virginia, it's at Penn State. Mm-hmm. Penn State is predicted to finish in the top 10 in the nation. West Virginia is predicted to finish 14th out of 14 teams in the Big 12.
Yeah, last.
And with an opener and the high expectations in Happy Valley, the bettors are saying that the chances of West Virginia, the chances will 88.5% chance that Penn State will win, and they're a 3-touchdown favorite.
It's you can certainly see it set up that way. You know, they lost 2 games was all they lost last year, but they lost to both of those teams that were in the Final Four. So there is that, and there's a lot of returners.
I'm going to make the case for why games have to be played. Because the famous coach Don Nalen says, well, we're going to show up and we're going to go ahead and play. We're not going to kill it off. Right. These teams, I'll put in the cautionary, you can tell me how crazy I am, but I'll put in the cautionary stuff about these teams are not that far apart. Last year, statistically, West Virginia gave up 367 points, giving up 30 points a game.
That's horrible.
That was what we scored. They gave up 395. We gave up 33 points a game. Penn State scored 35 points a game and gave up 18.2 points a game.
Right, and arguably against what you might say better competition, although the Big 12's offenses will probably score more points than the Big 10's do.
I've heard that, but our strength of schedule was 13th out of 131 teams. Theirs was 33rd out of 131 teams. So I don't want to hear this Big 12, Big 10 crap. We'll get into that rant later.
Well, that's all right.
We start Garrett Green. He's a 3-star, .86 junior, 5'11", 195. They'll likely start Drew Aller. He's a 5-star with a perfect 100 score. He's a sophomore.
It's about the only position where they don't have a proven returner is quarterback and maybe receiver. But every other position they have proven people, and that's the other reason for the people think it's going to be lopsided.
I don't want to say that they don't have players, but they're not a super team. Let me give you some trivia that people haven't talked about. You can take a look at our records. Penn State had 6 opponents that had losing records. Yeah. They only beat 3 Power 5 teams with winning records. That was Purdue, Minnesota, and Maryland. Those are hardly bragging top 10 kinds of credentials. They had a terrible time with Purdue in their opener. They were losing with 1 minute to go and scored with less than a minute to go, and could have easily lost that game.
That was at Purdue, though. But
that was at Purdue.
That's another mountain we got to climb.
I also saw some of that. And that was with a quarterback that could scramble too. And they had a couple of long plays. Purdue had an interception run back too. So, but that was a close game. And Purdue wasn't a bad team. Purdue ended up with an 8-6 record. But Penn State could easily lost that a home opener. They had a terrible time with Northwestern.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
Northwestern ended the season 1-11. Penn State handled them 17 to 7. That's not exactly top 10 credentials.
I don't know the circumstances surrounding that.
Well, it was in a downpour. Penn State fumbled the ball 4 times and threw 1 interception. But Northwestern had 3 turnovers as well. It was a bad game. Northwestern doesn't tackle, but again, you can brag about holding Northwestern to 7 points, but when your offense only puts up 17 yourself, you're not top 10. Then they beat Utah in a bowl. Now maybe that's pretty impressive. Certainly Utah was 10-4, the winner of the Pac-12. And they finished the season 7, 8, or 10, depending on the poll you look at.
Well, they knocked out that kid Cam Rising, the quarterback for Utah.
The Utah quarterback.
And once he went out of that game, it really wasn't a contest after that. But it's a quality win.
It's a quality win. I don't want to take anything away. Utah's preseason top 15 anyway this year. But they lost to Michigan 41-17. They lost to Ohio State 44-31. They allowed 85 points in those 2 games. This is a defense that's supposed to have been ranked high. If you go back and look at their rankings, Penn State's offense in rushing ranked 45th. Penn State's passing offense 46th. Penn State's passing defense 46th. Rushing defense, 17th in the nation. So what do you take from those stats last year? They really weren't a top 10 or even a top 25 team, except for stopping the run.
Well, let me remind you once again that they lost both of those games and they gave up those points, but those 2 teams were in the Final Four last year. Those 2 teams were pretty good. They could score points. Although we only played 1 Final Four team last year. TCU,
I'm glad you mentioned that. Because when we played TCU, we gave up 153 yards to TCU rushing and 340 yards for them passing. We rushed for 155 and we passed for 275. TCU then played Michigan. They rushed for, instead of 153 yards, they rushed for 286 yards against Michigan. That was a wild game. And Michigan got 186 against them. They passed for 225 and Michigan threw the ball all over the place for 342. Okay, that's the matchup between TCU, West Virginia, and Michigan. Well, when Penn State played Michigan, Penn State only rushed for 111 yards, fewer rushing yards than any of the other teams. Michigan rushed for 418 yards on this vaunted rushing defense of Penn State. And
they kept running it right at them. I remember.
Now, the other thing that happened in that game is J.J. McCarthy, the Michigan quarterback, was one of the few mobile quarterbacks in the Big Ten. And he only had 7 attempts, but he ran for 57 yards, averaging 8 yards a carry. That's the first time Penn State defensive ends couldn't tee off on an immobile quarterback in the Big Ten. Now, does this make them a bad team? Of course not. But I want people to stop building a temple to them. They have to play the game. They have to win. And even though how tough is their schedule? Of the 14 teams in the Big Ten, they're ranked 13th in schedule toughness.
Yeah, no, again, that's just somebody with some numbers.
Of the 14 teams in the Big 12, West Virginia's schedule is the toughest, number 5 toughest in the nation.
Yeah, but you're basing a lot of that on last year, and then it's on last
That's
year's
true.
results. And so a lot of what they expect from Penn State this year is based on last year's results of how good they're going to be.
Let's talk about Penn State last year and this year.
Okay.
The offensive line is actually believed to have improved over last year. They think their offensive line may be the best since Franklin got there in 2014. If that's the case, their rushing game should increase. And they do have running backs, Nick Singleton and Kathryn Allen, who combined for 323 carries last year. They're very good running backs. You've got to stop their run.
Both those kids came in as freshmen last year, and they both freshmen, and they both played, and they're both good. They're both good running backs. They're hard to tackle. They're hard to bring down.
Both the line and the running backs are going to be improved over last year.
I agree.
Of course, I think we will too.
Well,
Both our line and our running backs will be improved over last year.
Yeah, on offense, our offense. Absolutely.
Now, they lost 3 receivers, Parker Washington Jr., Mitchell Tinsley, they're gone, and Brenton Strange went off to the NFL. They added transfers, one from Kent State and one from Florida, but they're unproven on their receivers at this point. They're probably not as good on their receivers as they were last year, but they didn't pass a lot last year anyway.
They did not.
And I will say that they've got some excellent tight ends. That's going to be their strength, and I look for them to throw underneath the tight ends, and they're going to be big and physical, and you're going to have to tackle them, or they'll beat you.
With an unproven quarterback, your security blanket is your tight ends, and they've got more than one of them that's pretty good. They've got the one who's like 87 and the other one 44, and I don't know their names, forgive me, but they both can play. They can block, they can catch, they can run routes, and they can carry the ball. So if we get too caught up in their running game, because that's what they want to do, is come at you and run it, then they'll throw it. Now,
So their line's better, their running backs are better, their tight ends are better, their receivers are question marks.
Probably not as good.
Their quarterback may not be as mobile as last year's quarterback. Their quarterback last year was Clifford ran for like hundreds of yards in 2022. Aller and the other quarterback,
Bo Pribula,
they both are not as fast as the previous one. They're not bad, but they're not. So they're not.
Pribula's probably more of a runner.
They haven't improved, is my point. There.
Agreed.
Switching to their defense, they may be better at pressuring quarterbacks, and frankly, they had the best. They had a Big Ten best 42 sacks in 2022. So again, I'm very happy that we have mobile quarterbacks, because if we had another one of those pillars like we've had the last few years, they're going to kill you. And that number will probably go up in 2023 because they've got other people they've expected that are going to be even better, younger, and faster. But mark my words, they are deadly on 3rd and long. So West Virginia has to stay out of 3rd and long.
They've probably got 3 defensive ends that could start at any school in the country, and not just 2 of them. They probably got 3 of them. They're all good. They're a little bit shy, maybe not as experienced at the defensive tackle. They run a 4-3. We can beat them at the defensive tackle. Maybe we can move the ball on the ground against them, because they don't want to play run defense. They'd rather chase the quarterback.
They'd rather chase the quarterback. Coach Brown says they have 7 legitimate NFL players on their defense. And they probably have 4 or 5 on their offense.
Yeah.
They are higher quality,
line.
higher rated players. Let me be blunt about it. I think if our team all tried out for Penn State, I think maybe 2 or 3 would get a starting spot. The rest would be on the bench. I think if Penn State tried out for our team, I think probably most of them would take over. That's what you're up against. You're going to have to play as a team. You're going to have to play over your head. Now, I don't think they've lost their leadership. They had their team captains last year were 6th year, fifth-year and third-year safeties and quarterbacks. Their kicker and long snapper was there for 6 years.
Yeah.
They had veterans at the key spots, and they had vocal veterans. So they have to have somebody come in and take over as team leaders. That plays in our favor because that will put together as the season goes on. You can maybe get them early.
That's true.
And then the other area that they might be a little weak is kicking. They had to replace their long snapper and their place kicker, and their kicking game wasn't top notch last year.
Yeah, they've got a bunch of transfers that come in there, so that might be, I'd like to see one critical mistake in the game or two maybe by that unit would be okay.
Tell me what you think about the game now.
Me personally, well, I think they got superior talent, without doubt. They're going to try to run the ball and control the ball against us because I don't think they're going to trust Aller so much, their quarterback, because again,
it's going to be his first start,
right?
So you don't want him to make a lot of mistakes. You want his confidence to be built up, and if you can run against West Virginia, why throw?
But then again, on the other side, aren't we going very similar? We've got the line, we got a good line, we've got a lot of backs, like they got backs. We don't know about our quarterback is a little bit erratic. Our quarterback can run, their quarterback doesn't run as much. The difference in the game will be they've got a secondary that's extremely good. They've got cornerbacks that are very good at covering people. They've got safeties that'll hit people. I don't know what we have. I think we've got some people that will. However, I see us hanging in with them, running the football at them.
Well, let me give you a rundown, then we'll make our predictions.
Okay.
Because you hit a good point. They have very good linebackers, very quick linebackers. They'll come up, and they're sure tacklers. And we weren't sure tacklers last year. If we aren't sure tacklers this year, they'll blow us out. They'll run us out.
We got to tackle those runners. They're both good
because
runners.
Lots of times the best you're going to get is one-on-one, and if that guy misses the tackle, they'll go one in for a touchdown.
Yeah.
West Virginia has a shot here. Nobody has any film on our quarterbacks, much film on our quarterbacks, our receivers, and how the team plays together. Brown can surprise them. I don't think they'll try to surprise us. I think they'll be pretty routine because they figure this is in the bucket.
Right.
And that's the second part. The entire team in Happy Valley believes that we're not even a speed bump. We're just a tune-up game. If they look past us, if they take us for granted, if they come out and smack us around a little bit in the first quarter and then don't stay focused, that's how an underdog can knock off a team that they're not supposed to.
However, you think that countering that is the fact that it is a home opener and you're always fired and jazzed up for your first game.
Just telling you how West Virginia can do this. Now, we have a mobile quarterback. The last time we had a mobile quarterback, we won games.
Yeah.
That was with Skylar Howard in 2015 and 16. We won 10 games with him. We haven't won 10 games since.
Yeah.
We had a good offensive line and mobile quarterback. It makes it hard on the defense. This defense that can stop rushing. They haven't tried to stop a running quarterback. They haven't tried to stop Garrett Green. We'll see if we can keep him healthy and keep him from making mistakes.
They'll hit him.
But Garrett Green can't make a lot of mistakes. Now, Penn State is also vulnerable to the pass. They gave up 85 points to the good teams they played against. They gave up a bunch more points to Utah, even with their second-string quarterback. They gave up a bunch of points to Purdue. They're vulnerable. They can be scored on despite all this cockamamie crap about their defense being tough. We've got to be able to, but can we throw the ball with Garrett Green? Will he see the open receiver, and will our receivers catch it is a question mark. If he does, we're in this game.
Yeah.
I think we can run on them if our line plays consistent. I've seen our line play less than consistent.
Absolutely.
But I've seen Michigan run on them. I've seen Ohio State run on them. I've seen Purdue run on them. They can be run on, particularly if you misdirect them and you move to their left side of the line. They've got quick linebackers though, and they'll come up fast, which I think plays into the play action to the tight end.
RPOs.
We'll see how that works. They're cocky. They're counting on a national championship. Penn State lots of times has bad games early. Purdue, Northwestern, etc. Do they play yet as a team, or do they just play as a collection of players? But then the other question is, do we play as a team?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So
obviously, the conventional, it's easy. Anybody can say turnovers, mistakes, and penalties.
Yeah, of course.
You can't lose any of those. Turnovers, mistakes, and penalties. If you lose or even tie them in those three categories, they've got better talent. Yeah. So we can't give it away. They're too talented.
Yeah, it's true. We can't be making mistakes. We got to play a very good game. I wouldn't say flawless because nobody plays flawless, but we've got to play a near flawless game, and then force some mistakes. How about that? Force some turnovers. Force some things, because again, that's the better team.
Cash in on this. Both teams want to run the ball. If we can stop them, they'll throw against our rather questionable secondary. Can we rile Aller and confuse him so that he gives up a pass interception or so? Because if we do, he's going to feel all kinds of pressure. Yeah. He's going to have a stadium expecting the national championship, and if for a youngster who's starting his first game for Penn State, if he's behind and we're confusing him, we have a chance now that other teams won't have later in the season once he's on his sea legs. Yeah.
Agreed.
If they stop our run, we've got to mix it up. Green's got to be able to hit an open receiver, run option, a play action, but I'm not really worried if he gets hurt because I think Nico can do that too. Yeah. I think we're going to score. I believe Green outperforms Aller. I think we outscore them, and I think we upset Penn State in the opener.
So you're predicting a high-scoring game?
Yes.
Well, I think exactly the opposite. I think it's going to be close to the vest, a ball control and run the clock kind of game.
That's what the coaches are going to want.
Coaches want to do. And so, but what I like about that is that it narrows opportunities and narrows chances. I think we're going to hang in there with them. I can't see us beating them. I just can't see us beating them. But a mistake, critical, late or two, who knows? Let's play.
We're the underdog.
I like being an underdog. Let's.
I remember games like Pitt knocking us off when we were heading to the national title game. Yeah. They were the underdog. I remember West Virginia knocking off Florida in the lock game of the year. I remember the very next game, the start of the next season, going to Oklahoma and beating Oklahoma in their home opener, and nobody gave us a chance in that game either. We beat Georgia and Georgia Tech in postseason bowls. Underdogs win.
Georgia, yeah. Because of my preparation, we easily defeated Oklahoma.
Keep yourself in a position to win.
Yeah.
Wait for the other team to make a mistake. Take advantage of it. We beat Penn State in the opener. We beat Penn State in the opener.